Good morning, class. My name is Mr. Kane. I'm going to be your substitute teacher today. Let me start off by asking, do you guys have any pets at home? Yeah, what kind of pets do you guys have? You got a dog? Cool. How many of you guys have dogs? Yeah, a bunch of you. I actually have 2 dogs myself. A little puppy named Liberty and an older dog named Cassie. What are some other pets you guys have? Yeah, a fish? We got a couple fish. Cats? Okay. I have 2 cats too. What are all these pets? Your pets are all animals. What are animals? Animals are things that live and breathe just like we do and can move from place to place and eat either plants or other animals for food. Today we're going to be learning about animals. We're going to learn what they eat, where they live, how they live their lives. We're going to start off today by talking about a few key terms. We have our key terms over here. Some of them are big words. Don't be scared away by the big words. It's not too bad. I'll go through them in a little bit. After our key terms, we're going to learn about animals and their habitats, or where they live. Then we're going to do a short activity where we can match certain animals, and you guys can tell me what kind of habitats they would have. Or I'm going to show you a habitat, and you can show me what kind of animals might live there. After that activity, we're going to learn about these. Now these are big words. Don't be scared off. They're not too bad. We're going to learn about carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. Carnivores are animals that only eat meat or other animals. Carnivores. Herbivores are animals that eat plants. Herbivores. And omnivores are animals that eat both plants and animals. Omnivores. We're omnivores, right? We eat both plants and meat. After we go through these, we're going to do a short activity kind of like the first one, where we can give examples of carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores and see what kind of animals eat what kind of food. After this short activity, we're going to go through some animal books. I'm going to get you guys into groups. I'm going to hand out a book about an animal, and you guys are going to read about that animal and learn a little bit more about that animal. After you guys read about your animal, I'm going to bring you guys back and we're going to talk about the animals. We're going to talk about what we learned, where the animals live, what your animals eat, and all this stuff that we're going through in our lesson. And finally, after our discussion, if you guys are really good today, if you guys pay good attention to me and listen to everything I say, we're going to finish up with a fun activity. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be great. So after we go through today, you guys are going to know these key terms over here. You're going to know what all of them mean. You're going to be able to figure out what animals live where. You're going to know their habitats. And you're going to know what animals eat what kind of food. So if they're carnivores, meat eaters, herbivores, plant eaters, or omnivores, animals that eat both plants and meat. Now that we know what we're going to be talking about today, let's start out by going over our key terms. So we kind of already talked about what animals are, right? An animal is something that lives and breathes like we do and can move from place to place and needs food to eat. And they get that from either eating plants or meat from other animals. A habitat is where an animal lives. So, like a good example of a habitat would be like a pond. What do you guys think lives in a pond? Yeah, fish live in a pond. You're right. So a fish's habitat would be the pond. So a habitat is where the animal lives. Now the next 3, we already went over them. They're big words, but I think you guys remember what they mean. So can anyone tell me what a carnivore is? Yeah, you're right. A carnivore is an animal that eats meat. Carnivore eats meat, other animals. What's an herbivore? An herbivore, I heard it over here. An herbivore is an animal that eats plants. Good job. Herbivores eat plants for food, and only plants. Finally, omnivores. What's an omnivore? Yeah, you're right. We are omnivores. Omnivores eat both plants and meat. Good job. Now we'll go through the rest of our key terms. Survive means to stay alive, to continue to exist. So as long as an animal is living, it's surviving. Change. You guys all can see change, right? You know what change is. It's when something becomes different. So let's say a baby deer grows up. You can see some changes. It loses its spots, it gets antlers, it changes. Grow. You guys know what it is to grow. You're all growing. To grow means to get bigger or more developed. So like I said before with the deer will grow from a baby deer and lose its spots and get big and get antlers maybe, and that means it grew. Skin. We all have skin. You know what skin is. Skin surrounds an animal just like it does us to protect the animal. And then our last word here, muscles. We all got big muscles, right? Muscles are parts of our body that help us move. Animals have muscles too. Muscles pull or relax to help animals move from place to place. So let's start off about talking about animals and their habitats. An animal is something that lives and eats other animals, plants, or both. Do you remember what eats animals? Or like other animals, meat? Yeah, carnivores, that's right. Carnivores eat meat, and only meat. Remember what eats plants? Yeah, herbivores, that's right. Now this is the tricky one. Remember the name for those that eat both? It's called omnivores. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. So what's a habitat? A habitat is where the animal lives, or plants. It's where animals or plants live for their home. Now we'll go through some examples. So I'm going to put a chart on the board. I'm going to list some animals, and you're going to tell me what their habitat is. Or you're going to describe to the best you can where they live. So let's go with a deer. It's one of my favorite animals. You guys have seen deer, I'm sure. Can anybody tell me a little bit about the places they live? They live in the woods. Yep. You guys have seen them in fields a lot? We see them in fields all the time. Where else do you see animals? Or deer? Yeah, we see them by like rivers and lakes. We see them by water. These are some good features of a deer's habitat. In woods, they can either be in heavily wooded areas where there's really, really thick underbranches and stuff. They like to bed down in those. And especially prairies. They like to live and bed down in prairies too. You see them in fields a lot of times at night when they come out to eat, they're looking for those cornfields where they can eat some corn. And then you see them by water a lot because, like every animal, they have to drink, right? So let's do another one. How about fish? What can you tell me about a fish's habitat? Yeah, it lives in lakes and rivers. You know anything else about a fish's habitat? No, fish don't fly. Well, fish need plants too. Plants give off oxygen in the water so that fish can breathe just like we do. So they need to be by plants. Plants also give housing to other fish that some bigger fish can eat, and also little bugs that some of the smaller fish eat too. Let's do one more. How about a lion? What are some of the habitats or what's a little bit about a habitat you know about a lion? They live in Africa. Okay, what kind of land is in Africa? Well, Africa has savannas, and that's where it's mostly grassland and a couple of trees, spread out. I'll have a picture of a savanna when we go through our activity. You guys can see there. Where else do lions live? Or what do they live by? Yeah, they gotta have water so they can drink, right? Those are good examples. Now we're gonna go through a little bit of activity. I got some pictures here of habitats and animals, and you guys are gonna tell me what animal goes with what habitat on the picture. All right, guys, I'm gonna hold up a picture of an animal, and then I'm gonna hold up pictures of habitats until you think that habitat is right for the animal that I'm holding up. So we'll start off with our first one. What's this? It's a fish. You remember what we talked about where fish live? Is this the habitat of a fish? No. What about this? No, that's the same one as before. Ah. What about this? Yeah, fish live in lakes and rivers. And it has plants by so that they can hide and live and find other fish to eat. That's right. What about this one? We talked about this one too. This is a deer. Does this look like a deer's habitat? Yeah, that can be a deer's habitat. It has a field, probably some food in that field. You got trees around. Deer definitely live here. Now there's other habitats for deer in here too. What about this one? Yeah, that's also a habitat for deer. You're right, deer live in woods. They like to especially sleep in woods and move around in woods because it gives them cover and it gives them good shelter for home. Now what about this one? These are bears. Do you know what kind of environment bears live in? Yeah, bears live in the forest too. Does this look like the environment of bears? That looks like a forest to me. Bears would definitely live there. Now what about this one? This one might be kind of tough. You guys might not know what this is. This is a rhino. Yeah, you guys know what a rhino is. Does that look like the kind of habitat a rhino would live in? Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty good representation of where a rhino lives. This is a savanna. It has grass around, and it has a couple trees. Now this is exactly a place a rhino would live. The only thing we're missing in this picture is some kind of water source. You're right. Let's do one more. Where do you think this animal lives? It's a chicken. Yeah, you're right. We did see that picture earlier. We put it with the deer, but chickens also live in a farm. A lot of the times they'll be free range, which means they can run around wherever they want, but they usually don't go too far away. But yep, you're right. Now we're going to do a similar activity, the same activity with these pictures, but we're going to go through just the animals, and we're going to go through carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores. You guys are going to tell me what kind of animal is what and why. Let's start off with a little bit of review. So let's start with carnivore. What are some features of carnivore? Yep, I heard it. Carnivores eat meat. You're right. What are some other features of a carnivore that you think make them good for eating meat? A lot of times carnivores have sharp teeth. Carnivores also have keen senses. They usually know what's around them. Good senses. That can be a sense of smell, sight, hearing, anything to help them find prey. Another example of a good feature that carnivores have is their eyes are close together. They're focused. They have close eyes. Let's go through herbivore. Herbivores eat plants, you're right. Good job. And their teeth, unlike carnivores, are not sharp, but they're more flat and more like rigid. So they can easily grind up plants into a nice material. They have flat teeth. One more thing about herbivores is that their eyes are usually closer to the sides of their head. Like if you see cows, their eyes are way out here. The reason their eyes are so far to the sides of their head is so they can see more. They can see more so that they can see predators coming. They have wide eyes, we'll say. Now what about omnivores? Omnivores usually have a mix of sharp teeth and like flat teeth. Like our teeth. We have sharper pointed ones in the front, and then we got flatter teeth, better for grinding, towards the back. They have both teeth. Omnivores also usually have closer eyes. Sometimes they'll vary, but usually they're closer to their nose. We'll say they have close eyes. Good. Those are some features of carnivores, omnivores, and omnivores. Herbivores and omnivores. Now we'll go through some of the pictures, and you guys will tell me what animal is what. So what's this? Yeah, we have a zebra. You guys have seen zebras before, either in the zoo or pictures. What do you think they are? Well, you can kind of tell by this picture, they're eating grass, right? Yeah, zebras are herbivores. They have flatter teeth, and their eyes are more wide on the side of their head. What about this one? You guys all know what this is. That's a lion. You guys know lions eat meat. So what do we call this lion? It's a carnivore. Good job. Its eyes are closer together, as you can see, and it's got sharp teeth, as we can see in this picture. It's a great example of a carnivore. What about this little guy? This is kind of tricky, this one here. This is a chicken. What do you think chickens eat? Think it's an herbivore? Who thinks it's an herbivore? Well, you guys would be surprised when I tell you it's actually an omnivore. Chickens eat a lot of grass and plants, but they also love to eat bugs. They'll even scavenge on a little bit of meat if you give it to them, but they primarily eat bugs and plants. So that makes them omnivores. What about this rhino we saw earlier? Yeah, you can kind of tell in the picture it's eating grass. But look at this thing, doesn't it look so mean? It's got horns, it's huge. You think it's an omnivore? I was hoping somebody would say that. No, it's actually an herbivore. You guys were right. It only eats plants. What about these? We got bears here. Who thinks a bear is an herbivore? Raise their hand. Yeah, nobody. What about omnivore? Couple, yeah, good, good. What about carnivore? A lot of you guys think it's a carnivore. Bears is another tricky one, because when they open their mouth, you can see they have those sharp teeth, and their eyes are close together. But guess what? Bears eat berries and plants too. Bears are omnivores, just like us. We got two more. What about this little guy right here? Yeah, you all know what deer eat. They eat plants and food like corn and soybeans. Yeah, they again have those more flat teeth, good for grinding, and they got wider set eyes, meaning they can see around them. Deers are herbivores. Good job. And now our final one. This is a fish. I'll give you a hint. This fish has sharp teeth. So what do you think that makes it? Yep, this fish is a carnivore. You guys are right. This fish likes to eat little fish and just other little fish around it. Good job, guys. Those are some good examples of carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. You guys, I hope you guys took these down in your notes. We'll review them at another time too. Now, to learn a little bit more about these animals and their habitats and what they eat, I'm going to pass out these books over here, and we're going to read a little bit more about them. So, I'll get you guys into groups of 4, and then I'll go around and hand out the books. Now that you've all read a little bit about animals and their habitats and what they like to eat again, let's go through some examples again, just to wrap it up. We'll go from each group, and you guys can tell us what you read about and a little bit about your animals. So we had a deer group. You guys can tell us about their habitat and what they eat. We had a bear group. We had a lion group. And finally, we had a fish group. So why don't we start with the deer group, and you guys can tell us a little bit about deer. Okay, guys. Like I said, you guys have been really great today. You guys have paid attention, took good notes, and participated in the discussion. So now we're going to finish up class by guess what? Going outside. We're going to go outside, and we're going to take a live look at a real environment around us. We're going to see animals, and we're going to talk about animals and environments again. Thank you guys for behaving so well today. We're going to get into lines by the door, and I'm going to lead you guys out, and we're going to go outside to the pond. So now that we're outside, what do you think are some real-life habitats you guys might see in your everyday life? Well, some habitats you might see are forests or woods. You guys ever walked in the woods? What kind of animals do you think you would see in the woods? Well, in trees like these, you might see some squirrels, or in other forests, you might see deer, some birds in the trees. Forest is a common environment that you might see around the U.S. How about another one? Well, lakes. What about lakes? You guys have all been to a lake, right? What kind of animals do you think live in the lakes? Yeah, fish live in the lakes. Good example. We got fish, sometimes birds go around lakes. Other animals like turtles or frogs live in lakes. That's another good example of a habitat. Even the city can be a habitat. We have birds and small animals like squirrels living throughout the city, finding food that people drop every day. They find a way to survive in the city, and even the city is a habitat for them. Now, as we come here to a pond, this is a real life habitat that we can look out right in our own backyard. So what kind of animals do you guys think live by the pond? Yeah, there might be fish in the pond, there could be birds in the trees around that eat the fish, and there could be like turtles or frogs around the pond. So for this pond we have like water and wetlands around it, providing a good habitat for the fish, the birds, the turtles, anything like that. So some fish in the pond might be carnivores. You guys remember what that means? We went over it earlier. Yeah, it means that they eat other animals, they eat meat. Some animals might be herbivores around here, like squirrels. They find nuts or other things to nibble on around this environment. Another example of a carnivore would be birds. Birds sometimes eat fish. So that's a real look at a habitat that we can see every day around us. Okay class, next time you guys are outside, take notice of different habitats and different animals you might see in those habitats. Today we learned about animals and their habitats, like forests where you might see deer, squirrels, lakes where you might see fish or other birds flying around, and even the city where you might see birds flying around or other small animals. We also learned about carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. An example of a carnivore would be like a coyote. It only eats meat. Herbivores only eat plants, like deer and squirrels, and omnivores they eat both plants and meat, like various types of birds are omnivores. Alright class, now we're going to line back up and get ready to head back inside. Thank you guys for following directions today and paying attention during our lesson. I hope you guys learned some cool facts about animals and where they live and what they eat. Now we can head back inside.